If you still haven't obtained your federally compliant Real ID in Arizona, you're in luck. The Department of Homeland Security has decided to extend the deadline for another 19 months to 2023 due to the pandemic. But as Team 12's Adriana Loya reports, officials say it's still better to get it now rather than waiting.
Using your regular driver's license to board a plane inside the U.S. will no longer be allowed after May 3rd, 2023. That's when the Real ID Act will take effect, mandating every traveler 18 years or older flying domestically to have a travel identification with the gold star in the top right corner. The Department of Homeland Security extending the deadline 19 months because of the pandemic.
About 1.2 million Arizonans already have their travel ID, so that's great.
But Doug Pacey from the Arizona Department of Transportation says many have yet to get theirs. That's why they are urging everyone to not wait until the new deadline.
It's the same in that you go to the MVD or an authorized third party to get it, but you do have to provide a little bit more information, a little bit more verification about yourself.
Arizonans will need to provide proof of identity. This can be shown with a passport or birth certificate, proof of a social security number or a W-2 form, and 2 documents they show they live in Arizona. The travel ID can only be acquired in person. Appointments can be made at azdot.gov/travel ID. It costs $25, and the new identification will be mailed out in 10 to 15 days.
We encourage you to go get it. If you have a driver's license renewal coming up, or maybe you're turning 21 and your license changes, or, you change your address, you change your name, things like that.
Congress passed the Real ID Act in 2005 following the 9/11 terror attacks. The goal is to establish minimum security standards for state-issued driver's license and ID cards. DHS says only 43% of all driver's license and identification cards are compliant.
As we get closer, pretty soon before you know it, that May 2023 date will be here again.
Now the Real ID will also be required inside federal facilities, but passports and military IDs are among other forms of identifications that are allowed to board flights.
Thank you. Good morning. Welcome to Philadelphia International Airport. My name is Keith Bruni. I'm the Chief Operating Officer here at PHL. And thank you for coming out this morning for the reminder about Real ID. We've all probably had our travel plans disrupted over the last 2 years due to COVID. I know I certainly have. And for travelers, this includes the implementation of Real ID compliant driver's license or state IDs. The countdown to Real ID is on. 1 year from tomorrow, May 3rd, 2023, anyone traveling domestically will require a Real ID compliant driver's license or state ID or a passport or passport card in order to travel. You have a Real ID, as you can see up here, if your ID has a star on it. So we would encourage you to start the process for Real ID sooner rather than later to beat that last minute rush, which we're sure is going to happen next year. It's been a really long time since a lot of people have traveled, and we don't want anybody showing up next year and end up being turned away because of not having a Real ID. So please add Real ID to your travel planning checklist now to avoid a lot of headaches later. Thank you very much. I'd like to introduce now the Federal Security Director, Jerry Spiro.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Gerardo Spiro. I'm the Federal Security Director for TSA Philadelphia. Thank you all for being here today. And thank you especially to our partners at the airport, the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation and AAA for being here. Hopefully, you've heard by now that beginning May 3rd, 2023, every passenger will need a Real ID compliant driver's license or another acceptable form of identification to fly within the United States. Individuals who want to board an airplane will soon need a star on their driver's license indicating that it is a Real ID, or they will need another form of approved identification to board their flight or enter a secure federal facility or military base. With the Real ID Act of 2005, Congress enacted the 9/11 Commission's recommendation that the federal government should set minimum standards for state-issued driver's licenses and identification cards. From our perspective, TSA Real ID gives us another important tool in our security toolbox. It improves the reliability and accuracy of state-issued identification documents, and most importantly, prevents and deters terrorists' ability to evade detection by using fraudulent identification. So again, starting May 3rd, 2023, if you want to fly domestically, you will need a Real ID compliant driver's license or another form of ID, such as a passport, to enter a TSA security checkpoint. The good news is that you can upgrade to a Real ID if you currently don't have one. Again, remember, your current ID, if not Real ID compliant, will not be valid in May of 2023. So let me paint a picture for you. Thank you. Imagine you've spent many, many hours of your life planning the perfect family vacation. And that day finally comes and you show up at the airport and the kids are excited and you're going to the destination of a lifetime. And you've done everything right. You've taken the change out of your pockets. You've emptied your water bottles. You're ready to breeze right through TSA security. And you find out, oh, I'm really sorry, you don't have a Real ID. And at that point, there are no other options. Unfortunately, we will have to turn you away. And I can hear your kids saying, oh, Dad, you ruin everything. Don't be that person. Go out and get yourself a Real ID. It's not complicated. So we talked about the alternatives. And with that, I would just like to say thank you again. I appreciate it. It's going to make everything run smoother when we get to that point. And at this point, I would like to turn it over to Penndot Executive Deputy Secretary for Driver and Vehicle Services, Melissa Batula. Thank you.
All right, good afternoon. As was said, I'm Melissa Batula. I'm the Acting Executive Deputy Secretary for Penndot, and so glad to be here with you all. Appreciate all the work of our partners, TSA, the airport, and of course, AAA. This day has been a long time coming, so I really thank the team that's been organizing this, especially Sarah Baker and her entire team, and Diego from Penndot for all the work that has gone into this to prepare for today. So what we've seen is, as of course you've already heard, we're looking forward to that federal deadline of May 3rd of 2023, where everyone's going to have a Real ID or a passport or equivalent to be able to fly. So during all this time, we encourage all Pennsylvanians to make the personal decision on if they want or need to obtain a Real ID by that deadline, or use an alternative form of approved documentation, as I said, such as a passport. So there is no requirement to get a Real ID. That's a decision you need to make. Penndot continues to offer standard issue driver's license and photo IDs. I'm proud to say that so far, through the work of Sarah Baker and her entire team, Penndot has issued over 1.6 million Real IDs since they became available in March of 2019. So if you are interested in getting your Real ID, as a first step, we encourage all of our customers to visit our website at www.penndot.pa.gov/realid. And there you will find a lot of helpful information about the documents you will need. So in order to get a Real ID, Penndot needs to verify the following documents. We need to see proof of identity. That could be an original or certified copy of a birth certificate with a raised or embossed seal, or a valid, unexpired U.S. passport. We will also need to see your Social Security card, and it needs to reflect your current legal name. We need to see 2 proofs of your current physical Pennsylvania address, and there's a lot of acceptable examples of this. Even your current unexpired driver's license and your vehicle registration would certainly work. And then it gets a little bit more complicated. So for anybody who's legally changed their name, either by marriage or for other purposes, we need to see proof of those changes, like a certified marriage certificate or a court order. If you need to replace any documents, we also have information on our website about where to go to do that. But replacing these documents can take time, which is why we're encouraging all of our customers to start this process now. We're making it as convenient as possible to get a Real ID, and we have 3 options for you. You can order your Real ID online if you have been pre-verified, and your Real ID product will be mailed to you within 15 business days. You can visit any of our Penndot Driver's License Center, and you have your documents verified and imaged, and then your Real ID will be mailed to them within 15 business days of that. Or you can visit one of our 13 Real ID centers and have the documents verified and imaged and receive the Real ID product over the counter at the same time of the service. So the Real ID centers are built to meet and exceed the expectations and the requirements of the Department of Homeland Security guidelines, regulations, and security standards for over-the-counter Real ID issuance. However, all Penndot driver license centers can image and process your documents to help our PA residents obtain the Real ID product. When you get your Real ID, you will have to pay a one-time fee of $30 plus a renewal fee. So the current renewal fee for your driver's license or your identification is $32.50. Now, the expiration date of your Real ID product will include any time remaining on your current license or ID card, plus an additional 4 years, unless you're over 65 and have a 2-year license. So this expiration date structure means that you won't lose time that you've already paid for. And after your Real ID product expires, the customer will pay no additional fee beyond the regular renewal fees to renew a Real ID product. Again, as you've heard numerous times, that deadline is May 3rd, 2023, so it's a great time for customers to be gathering that information. We offer a printable Real ID document checklist on our Pennsylvania or our Penndot Driver and Vehicle Services website. And again, I thank you to our host, the Philadelphia Airport, and I thank Mike from KYW for his guidance in getting me here today. So I thank you so much. And now I'm going to turn it over to the podium to Jana Tidwell from AAA Mid-Atlantic. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Jana Tidwell. I'm the Manager of Public and Government Affairs for AAA Mid-Atlantic. Thank you to our partners here, PHL, TSA, and Penndot, for bringing everyone here today for a critical travel message. AAA is one of the largest travel agencies in the world, and with that, our mission and our messaging is to make sure that our travelers are prepared for the federal enforcement deadline that comes to be 1 year from tomorrow. Many of us don't plan spontaneous trips anymore, but as we get back to traveling, we do have some lead time. And with that lead time comes an extra layer right now to make, as Melissa said, that personal decision as to whether or not you want a Real ID as a Pennsylvania resident. It is optional. But if you are enjoying the convenience of domestic air travel using just your driver's license as your form of identification, now is the time to start planning to obtain that Real ID. And again, Melissa, I can tell you, I hit that snafu personally of the name change. Even though the name change happened almost 20 years ago, I hit that snafu at the King of Prussia Real ID Center. So because I had the luxury of time, it wasn't that urgent, I was able to go back and get the necessary documentation to prove my name change. But you don't want to have to do that at the last minute because it takes some time. So be proactive now as you're planning for summer travel 2022. Make Real ID part of that plan. As your driver's license comes up for renewal, make that decision as to whether or not you enjoy the convenience of domestic air travel using your driver's license as that form of identification. We don't want to see anybody's trip ruined. As Jerry said, and I say all the time, you don't want to be that person. You don't want to be that parent looking down at those kids with eyes of disappointment. Make the time to do it now. You'll be grateful this time next year that you have it. Thank you.